The hall was silent, yet heavy with whispers. 1,000 alien eyes glowed in the dim chamber of the galactic court. The air shimmered with strange energy. Screens floated in the air showing the will of a dead man. And in the middle stood a human, confused and alone. His name was Daniel Cross. He had never expected to be here. Never expected to stand in the heart of alien power. His friend, Kaler, the alien warrior, was gone. Kaler had been his comrade, his drinking partner, and the only alien Daniel had ever trusted. Now Kaler's death left a strange emptiness inside him. The court leader, a tall being with crystal skin, raised a glowing staff. His voice echoed like thunder. The last will of Kaler, son of Valor, will now be read. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. He expected Kaler's wealth to go to his clan or to some alien council. He expected nothing for himself. He was only a human soldier who once fought beside Kaler in battles long past. The screens flickered, and Kaler's face appeared, recorded before his death. His voice carried across the chamber, calm yet firm. If you see this message, then I am gone. I leave all my fortune, my estates, my ships, and my holdings, to my human brother, Daniel Cross. Gasps filled the court. Whispers turned into angry hisses. Aliens muttered in their tongues. Some shouted in protest. The wealth of Kaler was vast, enough to buy worlds, enough to command fleets, and yet it was being given to a human outsider. Daniel's heart pounded. His throat went dry. He stared at the screen in disbelief. "What?" he whispered. But Kaler's recorded voice was not done. His glowing alien eyes looked into the camera. "And I leave one more gift," he said. "My wife, Celera, is under Daniel's protection. She will not be left alone. He will stand as her shield, until death takes him too." The hall exploded. Aliens rose from their seats, shouting, fists slamming. The sound of rage echoed like thunder in the chamber. The idea was unthinkable. An alien widow placed under the protection of a human. Daniel froze. He felt heat rise in his chest. His hands trembled. Kaler's widow? He had seen her only once years ago. A vision of silver hair, blue skin, and eyes like starlight. She had looked untouchable, almost divine. And now the will bound her fate to his. The court leader slammed his staff. Silence returned. Though the air was thick with hatred, the leader's crystal face gleamed with anger. "This is against tradition," he growled. "A widow is to be claimed by her husband's clan, not by an outsider." But the law of the galaxy was clear. A will recorded and sealed was final. No one could challenge it. Kaler had spoken. His decision was iron. 2 guards brought her forward. Celera. She walked slowly, her long silver hair flowing like moonlight. Her blue skin glowed under the chamber lights. Her body was wrapped in a shimmering black robe, her eyes bright but filled with sorrow. She stood beside Daniel, but did not look at him. Her face was cold, proud. A queen standing before a beggar. She spoke softly, her voice smooth like silk but sharp as a blade. "So, the human is to protect me." Daniel swallowed. He wanted to speak, to explain he had no choice, but his voice failed. The eyes of the entire court burned into him. Thousands of aliens judged him, hated him. Some whispered that Kaler's widow was too beautiful, too important to be given away like property. Others whispered darker things, that assassins would strike before Daniel ever left the chamber. The court leader's voice rose. "The will is sealed. The fortune is his. The widow is his to guard. So let it be recorded across the stars." And with that, the fate of Daniel Cross was sealed. He was no longer just a soldier, no longer just a man. He was now heir to alien wealth, and bound to a widow who did not trust him. As the chamber emptied, shadows moved in the corners. Figures in cloaks whispered among themselves, already plotting his death, already planning how to steal the fortune. Daniel looked at Celera. She finally turned her head. Her silver eyes locked onto his. For a moment he felt frozen. She was stunning, breathtaking. But her gaze was full of fire. She spoke quietly, only for him. "I don't need you, human. But now, you are tied to me. And if you fail, we both die." Daniel clenched his fists. His world had changed in one single moment. The weight of the galaxy pressed onto his shoulders, and somewhere deep inside, a spark of fear, and something else took root. The story of fortune, danger, and forbidden bonds had only begun. The chamber had emptied, but Daniel still felt the weight of 1,000 alien eyes on him. The words of the will still rang in his head. The fortune is his, and the widow is under his protection. He could hardly believe it, and yet it was now his reality. The widow, Celera, stood tall beside him. Her silver eyes burned with quiet fire. She was breathtaking. But her beauty carried a cold edge. She walked with grace. Yet her steps were heavy with loss. Daniel felt like he was standing next to both a queen and a prisoner. 2 alien guards escorted them out of the court. Their glowing weapons hummed as if reminding Daniel that one wrong move could mean death. Outside, alien reporters and nobles waited, their voices rising in a storm. The human stole Kaler's fortune? One shouted. He took the widow for himself. Another hissed. Celera ignored them all. She lifted her chin proudly, but inside her heart was burning. Kaler had been her life, her protector, her husband. Now, in front of her stood a human stranger, chosen by fate, not by her will. As they entered a sleek hovercraft that carried them to Kaler's grand estate, Daniel tried to break the silence. "I didn't ask for this," he said softly. His voice sounded small in the large cabin. Celera's eyes shifted to him, sharp and untrusting. "And yet you accepted it," she replied coldly. Her words cut like a blade. "Do you think you can protect me? You are human, weak compared to my people. Do you think Kaler's enemies will fear you?" Daniel clenched his fists. He wanted to argue, but he held his tongue. He knew she was right. He was no alien warrior. He was just a man. But Kaler had trusted him. Kaler had believed in him enough to leave behind everything. The hovercraft landed at the estate. Towering spires of black stone and glowing blue crystals stretched into the sky. The gates opened with a deep hum. Inside, alien servants bowed, their faces hiding fear and anger. Some looked at Daniel with disgust, others at Celera with pity. As they walked through the halls, Celera finally stopped. Her eyes scanned the murals carved into the walls, images of Kaler's victories, battles where he had fought proudly for his people. Her hand trembled as she touched his image. "He trusted you?" she whispered. "But I cannot. Not yet." Daniel stood beside her. "Kaler saved my life more than once," he said. "If he believed I should protect you, then I will. Even if you hate me, even if the whole galaxy hates me, I will not walk away." For the first time, Celera's eyes softened, only slightly. She studied him, searching for lies, but what she found was a strange kind of strength. Not the strength of muscle or alien power, but the strength of a man who refused to break. That night, as Daniel explored his new quarters, he realized how dangerous his position was. Already messages arrived on glowing tablets. Threats, warnings, and even bribes. Rival clans demanded that he give up the fortune. Some promised gold, others promised death if he refused. Meanwhile, Celera sat in her chamber, staring out at the alien city. Her heart was torn between anger and sorrow. Kaler had left her to this human. A stranger. Why? Why would her husband trust him more than her own people? Was it betrayal, or was it love in another form? When midnight came, the silence of the estate shattered. Shadows slipped through the gardens. Assassins cloaked in black. Their blades gleamed faintly under the alien moon. They moved like predators, silent and deadly. Daniel was awake, pacing his room, when he heard the faint sound of metal scraping against stone. His soldier's instinct flared. He grabbed the only weapon he had, a ceremonial blade left on the wall. He rushed toward Celera's chamber. Inside, Celera was already standing, her robe flowing as she held a glowing dagger. Her silver eyes locked onto the intruders. She fought fiercely, striking with speed. But there were too many. The assassins closed in, ready to end her life. Then Daniel crashed through the door, roaring as he swung the blade. His strike cut down one attacker. Another lunged at him, but Daniel blocked clumsily. His arm burned with pain, yet he refused to fall. He fought with raw desperation, not skill. Together, he and Celera battled side by side. For the first time, their eyes met. Not with hatred, but with shared fire. He defended her back, and she defended his, slowly. The assassins realized this human was not weak. He was relentless. When the last intruder fell, the chamber fell silent again. Selera stood, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. She looked at Daniel. His arm bleeding, his face bruised, yet his eyes steady. He had not run. He had fought for her. For the first time, Selera spoke without coldness. Her voice was low, almost fragile. Perhaps, Kaler was right about you. Daniel met her gaze. His lips pressed into a thin line. He said nothing, but his eyes answered for him. He would not leave her, not now, not ever. But outside the estate walls, more enemies gathered. Tonight was only the beginning. The estate looked calm under the alien moon, but Daniel knew peace was only an illusion. The walls hummed with energy shields. Guards marched in silence. Yet something unseen pressed against the air. Danger that no shield could stop. Daniel sat in the courtyard, staring at Kaler's carved statue. His friend's stone face looked strong, unbreakable. Daniel whispered, "Why me, Kaler? Why trust me with all this?" No answer came, only the whisper of the night wind. Inside her chamber, Selera watched him through the glass wall. Her silver eyes glowed faintly. She studied the human who was now bound to her fate. He was not like Kaler, not tall, not powerful. His body carried scars, his shoulders bent under invisible weight. Yet there was something unshakable about him, something she could not name. By morning, news of the assassination attempt had spread across the city. The markets buzzed with rumors. The human won't last a week. Voices whispered. The widow will be claimed by another clan soon. Others laughed cruelly. A fragile human cannot hold Kaler's legacy. In the council chambers, alien nobles gathered in secret. Shadows clung to their cloaks. Their voices echoed like hissing snakes. The human must be removed. One said, "He is not strong enough to control the fleets and weapons." Another leaned forward. "The widow must be taken. She is the key to Kaler's power." A third hissed, "We will bleed them slowly, break their trust, and when they are weak, we strike." Back in the estate, Daniel trained alone in the sparring hall. His arms ached, his chest burned. He had fought battles before, but never with an entire galaxy watching. He swung the alien blade again and again. He knew enemies were moving in the shadows, and he could not afford to be weak. Selera entered silently, her robe flowing behind her. She watched him without speaking. He turned, sweat dripping from his face. "You doubt me?" he said quietly. "I can see it in your eyes." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I do not doubt your courage," she answered. "I doubt your chances. Courage alone will not protect me or Kaler's legacy." Daniel dropped the blade and stepped closer. His eyes met hers. "Maybe courage is all I have, but I'll use it until my last breath." For the first time, she hesitated, her cold mask cracked, and she looked away. Something inside her shifted. Though she would not admit it, that night, the shadows finally moved. Cloaked figures slipped into the city, their steps silent, their blades dripping with poison. They did not attack the estate. Not yet. Instead, they spread fear, servants vanished, allies withdrew. Even the guards at the gates whispered about leaving. The estate became an island, surrounded by enemies on every side. Selera stood by her window, watching the distant lights of the city. "They are not waiting to kill you," she said when Daniel joined her. "They are waiting to crush you slowly, until you stand alone." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Let them wait. They'll see I don't break." Selera turned to face him, her silver eyes sharp. "Do you understand what you carry? This fortune is not only gold and land. It holds Kaler's secret. Something the galaxy will kill for." Daniel frowned, but before he could ask, the sound of alarms shook the estate. Red lights flashed. Guards shouted as the outer shield flickered. Figures in the dark pressed against the gates. Not dozens, but hundreds. Their whispers carried on the wind, promising death. Selera gripped his arm, her voice urgent. "This is only the beginning. If you fall tonight, Kaler's fortune dies with you, and so do I." Daniel tightened his grip on the blade. His heart pounded, but his eyes burned with fire. "Then we fight, not for fortune, not for power. We fight because they want us broken, and I don't break." Selera stared at him, her heart torn. He was only a human. Yet in that moment he looked unshakable. Something inside her whispered that maybe Kaler had not chosen wrong. Outside, the shadows prepared to strike. The war for the inheritance had begun. The attack on the estate had ended before it truly began. The outer shields had held, glowing blue against the rain of energy bolts. The enemies in the shadows retreated for now, but Daniel knew it was not victory. It was only a warning. The servants whispered fearfully in the halls. Some began packing their belongings, ready to flee. The once proud estate of Kaler felt hollow, like a fortress crumbling from within. Daniel walked through the corridors with his blade in hand, his jaw tight. He could feel eyes on him, not just from enemies outside, but from allies inside who no longer trusted him. Celera sat in the grand chamber, her silver hair glowing under the light of the crystal chandeliers. Her expression was calm, but her eyes told another story. They carried both fire and sorrow. Daniel stepped into the room, weary but unbroken. "They will not stop," she said softly. Her voice was like a quiet storm. "They will keep coming until you are dead, until I am taken." Daniel stood before her. "Then we keep fighting. We protect what's ours." Solara's eyes narrowed. "You still do not understand what you hold." Daniel frowned. "Wealth, ships, estates. That's what Kaler left me." Her lips curved into a faint, bitter smile. "If it were only that, you would already be dead. The noble clans do not kill for simple riches." "No, Daniel, what Kaler left behind is a secret." Daniel stepped closer. "What kind of secret?" Celera rose from her seat. Her long robe swept the floor as she walked to the far wall. She pressed her hand against a glowing stone, and with a low rumble, the wall shifted open. A hidden passage revealed itself. Daniel followed her down the narrow stairwell, the air cold and heavy. They entered a chamber deep beneath the estate. The walls pulsed faintly with alien energy, symbols glowing like starlight. At the center stood a crystal vault, sealed with layers of protective shields. Celera turned to him, her silver eyes glowing in the dim light. "This is the true inheritance." Kaler was not only a warrior. He was a keeper of forbidden knowledge. Inside this vault lies a weapon, one strong enough to shatter planets. Daniel froze. "A weapon?" Celera nodded. "It is older than our people. Some say it was left by the first beings. Kaler guarded it his whole life. He believed it must never be used. That is why he chose you, Daniel. He trusted that a human, someone outside our clans, would never abuse it." Daniel felt his chest tighten. The weight of Kaler's decision now pressed on him like a mountain. "He thought I could protect this? Me?" Her gaze locked onto his. "Yes, because you do not hunger for power the way my people do. But now that it is yours, you are a target. Every noble clan, every warlord, every mercenary. Once they learn the truth, they will come for you. Not for gold. For this." Daniel stepped closer to the vault, its surface glowing faintly as if alive. His reflection stared back at him, pale and uncertain. He whispered, "If this falls into the wrong hands." Celera finished his thought. "Worlds will burn." Silence filled the chamber. Only the hum of the vault remained. Daniel turned to her, his voice steady. "Then we keep it safe. No matter what." Her eyes searched his face. She wanted to doubt him, but there was something unshakable in his gaze. She nodded slowly. "Then you must be ready, because the shadows outside they already suspect. And once they know the truth, they will unleash war." That night, as Daniel lay awake, his mind churned with the revelation. He had thought Kaler left him wealth, but what he inherited was responsibility heavier than any fortune. Outside, cloaked figures met in secret chambers. Reports were exchanged, bribes offered, assassins paid. But among them, a whisper spread of something greater. "The vault," one hissed. "The widow guards it still, but the human has the key." Another's eyes gleamed in the darkness. "Then we do not kill him yet. We take him alive. And through him we open the vault." The next morning, Daniel trained again in the sparring hall, his muscles aching, his breath ragged. Celera watched him silently. At last she spoke. You do not fight like Kaler. You fight like a man who has nothing to lose. Daniel paused, sweat dripping from his brow. That's because I don't. If I lose, the galaxy loses. For the first time, a faint warmth touched her eyes. She saw not just a human, but a protector willing to carry a burden that could crush even the strongest alien. But even as she watched him, shadows gathered beyond the estate walls. The war for Kaler's secret inheritance was only beginning, and both Daniel and Celera stood at the center of a storm that could decide the fate of worlds. The days after Celera revealed the vault were tense. The estate was surrounded by fear, servants moved like ghosts, and guards whispered of leaving before the next attack. Daniel could feel the air itself growing heavier, like the calm before a storm. Celera spent more time with him now. At first, it was only to test him, to study him. She asked about his battles, his world, and why Kaler trusted him. But slowly, something changed. The sharpness in her voice began to soften. She started to look at him not as a stranger, but as a shield she might actually depend on. One evening, they trained together in the sparring hall. Celera moved with the grace of a dancer, her glowing dagger flashing in the dim light. Daniel fought clumsily at first, but he was relentless. Sweat dripped down his face, yet his eyes stayed focused. You never stop, Celera said between strikes. Stopping gets you killed, Daniel replied, blocking her blade with his. For the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. It vanished quickly, but Daniel noticed. A fragile thread of trust had begun to weave between them. But outside the estate, enemies grew bolder. Spies crept closer, messages of threat arrived daily. Some came with offers. Leave the widow, hand over the fortune, and live. Daniel ignored them all. Unknown to him, betrayal was already inside the walls. Among the guards was a man named Varen, tall, silent, and trusted. He had once served Kaler, and Celera believed his loyalty unshakable. But greed is stronger than loyalty, and whispers from the rival clans had reached his ears. Gold and power promised more than honor ever could. One night, Daniel and Celera sat in the library, its walls lined with ancient scrolls and glowing crystals. She read silently while Daniel sharpened a blade. The quiet between them was no longer awkward. It was almost peaceful. Celera finally spoke. I see now why Kaler chose you. You are not like my people. You fight but not for power. You fight because you cannot give up. Daniel looked up. Her silver eyes glowed softly in the candlelight. Kaler believed in me when no one else did. I won't let him down. And I won't let you down. Her lips parted as if to reply, but before she could, the sound of shouting filled the halls. Daniel leapt to his feet, blade in hand, Celera right behind him. They rushed into the courtyard. The gates were open, betrayal. Armed intruders stormed in, their blades flashing in the night. Among them, Daniel saw the familiar face of Varen, the guard who had sworn loyalty to Celera. Her eyes widened in disbelief. You? She gasped. Varen's face was cold. Kaler is gone. His legacy does not belong to a human, nor to you. It belongs to those strong enough to claim it. Daniel's jaw tightened. You sold them our gates. Varen sneered. And I will sell your life next. The attackers charged. Daniel met them head-on, his blade clashing against alien steel. Pain shot through his arm, but he pushed forward. Celera fought at his side, her dagger flashing like starlight. For a moment they moved as one, back to back, striking, blocking, surviving. But the enemy was many, and the estate burned with chaos. Varen himself advanced, his blade aimed at Celera. Daniel intercepted him, their weapons clashing in sparks. You don't belong here, Varen hissed. This fortune, this woman, this power, it's wasted on you. Daniel gritted his teeth, forcing the blade aside. Maybe, but Kaler trusted me, and that's worth more than your greed. The fight raged. Servants screamed. Guards scattered. Celera struck down one enemy after another, but more poured through the gates. Daniel bled, his breath ragged, yet he refused to fall. Finally, with a roar, he drove his blade through Varen's chest. The traitor staggered, shock in his eyes. "A human!" he gasped, before collapsing lifeless to the floor. The courtyard fell silent. The surviving attackers fled into the night. Only the sound of fire crackling in the distance remained. Daniel stood breathing heavily, his clothes torn, his arm dripping blood. Selera approached, her silver eyes locked on him. For the first time, she did not look at him with mistrust. Instead, she placed her hand on his shoulder. "You saved me," she said softly. Her voice carried both gratitude and sorrow. "You fought when even my own people betrayed me." Daniel looked at her, his voice steady. "I told you, I won't let you fall." Their eyes lingered on each other in the fire-lit courtyard. Something unspoken passed between them, fragile but powerful. A bond that went deeper than duty. But as the flames burned, Daniel knew this was only the beginning. If betrayal could come from within the walls, then no place was safe. And now every clan in the galaxy would know that the human heir had survived again. In the shadows beyond the city, rival leaders gathered. "The human grows dangerous," one hissed. "He has the widow's trust. Soon he will have the galaxy's." Another's eyes gleamed with hate. "Then we must break him. If brute force cannot do it, we will strike where his heart is weakest." The storm of war was not finished. It was only rising. The estate still smelled of smoke. Black scars marked the stone walls, and the courtyard was littered with broken blades. The fires from Varen's betrayal had been put out, but the memory of it burned hotter in Daniel's mind than the flames ever had. Selera stood by the broken gate, her silver hair glowing in the morning light. She had lost much, her husband, her clan's trust, and now even one of her most loyal guards. Yet she was still standing. Daniel watched her from a distance, silent. She carried herself like a queen, but her shoulders trembled when she thought no one saw. He stepped toward her. "I should have seen it," he said quietly. "I should have known he would betray us." Selera shook her head. "No one could have known. Betrayal wears the face of trust. That is why it cuts so deep." Their eyes met, and for the first time, Daniel saw no coldness in hers. Only weariness, only truth. That night, the estate gathered in the great hall. Only a handful of guards remained. Many had fled, too afraid of the enemies gathering outside. Daniel stood before them, his voice steady though his heart beat hard. "I know what you think," he said, scanning their faces. "That I am only human, that I will fall. Maybe I will. But hear this, I will never run. If you leave, then go. But if you stay, understand this, we fight together. And if I must die, I'll die standing." Silence filled the hall. A few guards lowered their eyes in shame. Others straightened, gripping their weapons. Slowly, courage began to flicker among them, fragile but real. Selera watched from her seat, her silver eyes fixed on him. For the first time since Kaler's death, she felt something she thought she had lost forever, hope. But hope was tested quickly. At dawn, scouts returned with grim news. A fleet of enemy ships hovered near the city. Rival clans had united, their banners glowing across the sky. They were coming not just for the fortune, not just for the widow, they were coming for the vault. Daniel stood on the balcony, watching the ships drift like predators in the clouds. His chest tightened, but he did not flinch. Selera joined him, her robe sweeping the floor. "They will not stop," she whispered. "They will break the shields, storm the estate, and take the vault. And when they do, the galaxy will bleed." Daniel turned to her. His face was tired, scarred, but his eyes burned like fire. "Then I make you a promise. As long as I live, they will not touch you. They will not touch the vault." Selara's breath caught. "Daniel!" He stepped closer, his voice low but strong. "I don't care if I die. I don't care if the whole galaxy hunts me. I will protect you. Not because Kaler asked me, but because I choose to." Her silver eyes softened. For the first time, tears shimmered there. She reached for his hand, hesitant at first, then firm. "Then I will stand with you, until the end." The attack came at dusk. The enemy fleet rained fire on the city, and shadows swarmed the gates once more. The estate shook under the impact. Alarms screamed, guards scrambled, but this time Daniel was ready. He stood at the front line, Celera beside him, her dagger glowing. Together they led the defense. The clash of steel and the roar of blasters filled the night. Daniel fought like a man possessed. Every swing of his blade was fueled by the promise he made. He cut through enemy after enemy, his arms burning, his breath ragged, but he never gave ground. Celera moved with him, striking fast and fierce, her silver hair whipping in the chaos. At one point, an enemy warrior twice Daniel's size broke through, his blade raised high. Daniel braced for the strike, but Celera darted in, her dagger flashing, and dropped the giant to the ground. She glanced at Daniel, breathless. "I told you. I stand with you." Daniel grinned despite the blood on his face. "Then we'll never fall." Hours passed, and the courtyard became a sea of broken bodies and shattered weapons. The estate walls cracked but did not fall. Slowly, the enemy retreated into the night, their banners disappearing into the dark sky. Daniel collapsed against a wall, bleeding and exhausted. Celera knelt beside him, her silver eyes filled with both fear and admiration. She pressed her hand to his wound. "You are reckless," she whispered. "Maybe," he breathed, "but you're alive. That's what matters." Her hand lingered on his chest. "No, Daniel. What matters is that you kept your promise." For the first time, she leaned closer, her forehead resting against his. In the quiet after the storm, the bond between them was no longer fragile. It was forged in fire and blood, unbreakable. But even as the night grew still, Daniel knew the war was not over. The shadows had only retreated to gather strength, and the secret of the vault still burned like a star, drawing enemies closer. Yet now he was no longer alone. He was bound by his promise, and by the eyes of the widow who had finally begun to see him not as a stranger, but as something more. The estate was quiet after the battle, but the silence was not peace. It was the silence of exhaustion, of wounds still bleeding, of enemies retreating but not gone. The halls were broken, the gates half destroyed, yet Daniel still stood. He walked slowly through the courtyard, stepping over scorched stone and broken weapons. His body ached, his wounds burned, but his spirit was steady. He had promised Celera he would protect her, and he had kept that promise. Celera watched him from the steps of the grand hall. Her silver eyes followed every movement, her heart heavy with both sorrow and pride. She had lost Heir, but in Daniel she saw something unexpected, loyalty that did not come from tradition, but from choice. "Your people will come again," Daniel said as he reached her. His voice was low, steady. "This isn't the end." Celera nodded. "No, but this time they will not see you as a thief. They will see you as a warrior who stood against them and lived." For the first time, Daniel saw not mistrust in her eyes, but respect. Something deeper, something that carried the weight of a bond neither of them had planned. Later that night, Celera led him back into the secret vault beneath the estate. The glowing walls pulsed with ancient power, and the crystal core shimmered like a living star. "This is what they want," she whispered. "This is what Heir died protecting, and now it is ours to guard." Daniel stared at the vault. He could feel its power in his bones, dangerous and alive. "If they take it, whole worlds will burn," he said. "Yes," Celera agreed, her silver eyes shining in the dim light. "That is why Heir chose you. He knew you would not crave its power. He knew you would resist the temptation." Daniel turned to her. "He believed in me more than I believed in myself. But now, I have more than his trust. I have yours." Celera hesitated, then stepped closer. Her voice softened. "You have more than that, Daniel. You have me." Her hand touched his chest, resting over his heartbeat. For the first time, her coldness melted completely. She was no longer a widow trapped by duty, but a woman choosing her own path. But outside, the enemy gathered for one final strike. A coalition of rival clans prepared their fleets, determined to take the vault at any cost. Spies within the city carried word. Tonight, the human heir dies. Daniel and Celera knew the attack was coming. They stood together on the balcony, watching the sky flicker with distant warships. They will come in numbers too great to fight, Celera said. Then we don't fight them with numbers, Daniel answered. We fight them with something stronger. What is stronger than an army? She asked. He looked at her, his eyes steady. A promise. When the attack began, the city shook under the storm of fire. Fleets darkened the skies, and alien soldiers poured into the streets. The estate became the final fortress. Daniel led the defense with a fury no one expected. His blade flashed, his voice roared, and his will refused to bend. Celera fought at his side, her dagger gleaming, her movements swift and deadly. Together they stood like a wall, unyielding, unbreakable. Enemies fell one after another, but still they came. The estate walls cracked, fire rained, and for a moment it seemed the end had come. Then Celera raised her voice, echoing across the battlefield. This man is Kaler's heir. He is my protector, and he will be the protector of us all. Her words carried like thunder. For the first time, alien soldiers hesitated. The sight of the human fighting beside the widow, bleeding, unbroken, unstoppable, lit something even stronger than fear, respect. The rival clans faltered. Some fled. Others lowered their weapons. The storm that had seemed endless finally broke. By dawn, the battlefield was quiet. Smoke rose from the ruins, but the estate still stood. Daniel leaned against the broken gate, breathing heavily, his body covered in wounds. Celera stood beside him, her silver eyes bright with pride. You kept your promise, she whispered. Daniel looked at her, his lips curling into a tired smile. I told you, I don't break. Her hand slipped into his, firm and unafraid. Then from this day, you are not just Kaler's heir. You are my partner. Together we will guard this legacy. Together we will build a new one. Daniel squeezed her hand. Then let it begin. Across the galaxy, news spread like wildfire. A human had inherited alien fortune and defended it against impossible odds. He was no longer just an outsider. He was a name whispered with respect. A man who stood against the shadows and won. And beside him, the widow who once looked at him with mistrust now stood as his equal. Her eyes no longer cold but full of light. Together they had forged something greater than fortune. They had forged a bond, promise, a new legacy.